Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate, the show that inspires each of us to see how we have the power to make a difference all around us. Each episode highlights an individual doing good in the world while following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I get so excited about sharing each and every episode of Be the Good with you, and I hope you enjoy these people and stories. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you so much for your support. I'm so glad you found Be the Good with Kate and would love to hear from you. If you're finding value in these episodes, I invite you to share with someone who could also use this dose of good news, or tag me on social with your favorite quote from the episode. Every share, subscriber, review, and comment helps me to share these guests' wonderful work to more people. Thank you for your help in this. Now, on to this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world.
Brooke Happy, I'm so excited that she is here on Be the Good with Kate today to kick off our trio of 3 interviews that really hone in on the career change aspect that keeps coming up episode after episode. You know, people start off staying in college or in high school, they want to do one thing, and how the journey takes them is pretty exciting and something I really wanted to highlight. So Brooke is here. She is the owner of Be Happy. And I just have to read from her LinkedIn because I love how she worded this. Iowa mom who sold it all to travel the US in an RV, running Be Happy lifestyle brand from the road, giving back to causes dear to my heart, and collaborating with brands. So Brooke, thanks so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. So tell the audience a little bit more about the catalyst for change of your career, because I know you were a physical therapist and you really wanted to focus on your family. So I love that. Please expand on that for us.
Yes, I always dreamed, in middle school, high school, of being a physical therapist and kind of specializing in women's health. I wanted to own my own, physical therapy clinic and help all of these females. So I did the whole med school, got my degree, got my doctorate, and I worked for like 3 years. And then I was expecting my 3rd daughter, and I just felt this pull between wanting to be this professional, but also be a mom. And I've always followed my heart. I've always kind of just listened to my gut. And I thought, I can build my way back up to this point in my career, but I will never get this time back with my kids. And so, I thought if I take this leap of faith, stay home with my kiddos, and I don't enjoy it, I can always go back, but I will never get that time back with my kids. So I resigned from my job as a director of rehab and started staying home just before I had our 3rd child.
Wow. Now, what was it like grappling with that back and forth? And I know that our society really kind of puts on a pedestal the title aspect and the job. So did you have a lot of struggle with that, or was it pretty clear once you decided that this was the track for now?
I didn't have a hard time with the decision of, let's just go with like my gut and follow my heart to stay home with the kids. But what I struggled with was almost that I was failing in a way that I had worked so hard to get to this title and this degree. And then I wasn't using it. And so I think that's honestly what I struggled with more, was feeling like I was wasting something that I worked hard for. But it was when I came to the acceptance and just the mindset that was for a season of life, and it worked perfectly for that season. But 3 kids, a traveling husband, that wasn't working for the season of life. And I knew that I could make it work another season. So that was the biggest thing, was just that mindset of almost a failure because I wasn't continuing something that I worked so hard to achieve.
I love how you frame it with the season of life. And you say that a lot on your website too. And it's such an important reminder just to highlight, because we do. And now, it's 2023. We're not in that world where it's like, no, you stay in one job for 25 years and retire there. It is embrace to change it and follow your heart more. So that's such a great reminder. Thanks for saying that too. And then how did you get from I've resigned, I have a 3rd child, and then Be Happy?
Yeah, I had all, full intentions of going back to working as a physical therapist. I did a lot of manual therapy. And so I had built up the strength in my hands and I didn't want to lose that. So I was like, well, I'm a lifelong learner. Let's learn something new. So I went to the yarn store and picked up a crochet hook and some yarn and just started making hats for the babies in the hospitals. And so that was just like a hobby. And then I was really struggling with the transition of getting ready every day, having a strict, rigid schedule as a therapist, and then the stay-at-home mom life. And so I wanted to feel better about myself. I made a slouch hat from learning to crochet, and I just kind of started wearing it around town, and other moms started asking where to buy this hat. And I was like, oh, I'll just kind of start selling them on the weekends or at local markets. And so that kind of transitioned into a side gig hustle, something that I could kind of put a little passion project on as my kids kind of grew.
It's so neat. A random aspect of your job before was this hand strength, and you translated it into something else. I didn't realize that you didn't crochet before all of this happened.
No, yeah.
Aha! And then growing the business, but also being full-time mom, did it feel like, or does it still feel like you have two full-time jobs again? Have you found a balance? I know it's an overused word, but, or what does life look like?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of change in our life from when I started Be Happy to where we are now, because we sold everything to travel. Before, we were in our home in Iowa. So we've had a lot of life change, which I think comes with a change in perspective. So from our kids going to a traditional school to now homeschool, they do help a lot in the business. Weighing things and learning about, ounces to pounds. And so yeah, I don't think that we can ever really have balance, because there's going to be something that's always wanting our attention, or what we feel like will want our attention. So I just really, we incorporate a lot of the business aspect into school and just life lessons, as we travel.
That's great. And that's a great transition too. You sold everything and you live out of an RV, and you're actually the third person on the show somehow. I don't know how this worked out, who has done something like this. And what I've realized now is you're number three of this happening, the happiest people, the most like calming people too, of just like you're in nature and you have time to reflect and you make time for that. And I know from Brooke has a wonderful Instagram account too to follow, where you just get the sense of that. So what was that transition like, to go from that traditional house and school, etc., to living on the road?
Yeah, I think it was just kind of the same thing as when I was transitioning from a medical professional to a mom. Was we felt like life was passing us by. We had these dreams and these goals that we were trying to achieve, but we were missing everything in between. And so we were weekend warriors, and we just kind of camped on the weekends. And my husband has a flexible job. I could run my business from the road. And I was like, you know what? Let's just try this full time. We knew some families that were doing the same thing. And so we said, kind of the same thing. We can get a house if we go on the road for a month, we can always come back and find a house. The home was always to us like what we did with the people, in our home, not necessarily the actual structure. So we sold everything in 2019. Actually, next week will be our 4-year anniversary. And yeah, I think it just really strips away everything that you think you need in life, and really simplifies, the life that we're living.
Wow. Wow. And it simplifies it. Like, I think a lot of people, myself included, think traveling all the time and thinking, oh, that's complicated. I have to figure out where I'm getting groceries. I have to figure out how to store things. What am I doing with all of like mail? I mean, all of those logistical aspects, but you say it simplifies it. How awesome is that? And in what ways have you really just embraced this, aside from the obvious of you don't have a house, you live on the road, you have an RV? Just expand on that.
Yeah, I think that in our society, we feel like we always have to kind of grow, or step up to something almost better, or what we feel like is better. And so when we actually live with less, it's just incredible. And honestly, I actually noticed it before we sold everything. When my husband and I were like, yep, this is kind of what we're doing. We lived in our dream home. We had 6 bedrooms. It was too large now. Thinking back, it's crazy how large the house was. But I started simplifying the kids' toys, and I noticed an immediate difference in the way that they played, their imagination, just their the way that they interacted with each other. They were engaged in things, and I knew immediately that if we don't like this or whatever, maybe a flat tire down the road, that they were going to be impacted in more ways than we could ever imagine, just by kind of taking out some of the noise that we feel like we need to have in our life, when truly we don't.
Oh, great. Again, great reminders, just one after the other too, for all of us, even if we're not, living in that same lifestyle, that idea of simplifying. And before I miss this chance to highlight what Be Happy makes it really stand out to, is that you donate the proceeds still. So can you tell us just a little bit more about how you give back, which is so great?
Yeah, so when I started crocheting, I would make a hat, or I would make just hats and donate them. And then once I started selling, I would donate one for every one that was purchased. And fortunately, we grew too much that I could not keep up with the donations. So in 2018, our middle son was in the PICU for a couple weeks, and we couldn't leave the room. He was in isolation. So, and only my son or my other kids and my husband could come in, and the Child Life Services would bring in movies and toys and Play-Doh for him to, play and engage and do things. And the kids continued to talk about those moments, after everything, after we were discharged. Oh, the Spider-Man movie that we watched and this and that. And I was like, this is how we can, make an impact. So we now donate a portion of the proceeds from each sale to purchase wish list items for Child Life Services at children's hospitals kind of across the country as we travel. So that's kind of our way that we give back.
Amazing. I love what you're doing, Brooke. And just share where you are now so that people can get an idea.
We are in Iowa for the summer, staying in the cornfields.
Love it. Love it. Perfect time of year to be out there in the
Yes.
sunshine. Brooke, thanks so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
So next, in talking to people, really honing in on this aspect of career change, I am fortunate enough to have Joel Dommel on the show joining me. Joel and I met in high school with the theater world, something called the Freddie Awards, if anyone here is listening from Western New Jersey or Eastern Pennsylvania. And Joel came to New York to be a performer, and he has since shifted, and he is now the senior managing director of Corcoran Group on the West Side here in Manhattan. So Joel, thanks so much for hopping on with me today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Kate. It's good to reconnect. It's like a reunion of sorts.
Yes, he was my dance partner in the opening number of one of the award shows way back when.
I forgot that. Yeah, that's true. That
I'll
checks
see
out.
if there's like a picture somewhere I can add in here.
Oh, please don't. I'm not, just for my sake, please do not.
Well, that was long enough ago that I don't think that's all as digital and easy to find as they are today. So you're probably safe.
Yeah.
But hey, Joel, tell us more about, well, first, I'd love to hear what brought you to New York in the first place, kind of the performing aspect, and then we can move into how that shifted into real estate.
Yeah, for sure. And I went to college for music theater. I graduated BFA from the Hart School. Met my now wife, then fiance, at college as well. And I remember telling people when I was in high school and everyone was asking, in the community, like, what are you going to do next, right? Because I feel like they ask that once you're in middle school on. It seems kind of crazy they ask it so early. But I was always like, I want to move to New York because I think I can make an impact through my work in that way. And at the time I thought it was acting. So I was like, I'm going to make an impact that way through my craft in the community, but also, just maybe impact other people, tell a story that's worth listening to. And I think that's the thing that got me excited to move to the city. And I was only really an actor for a short period of time, at a little over a year, once I moved to the city before I transitioned into real estate.
And what was it of, all the careers that you could go into, what pulled you into real estate?
It's a good question. I'll be honest, I wasn't looking for it. And I feel like I hear that more and more as I talk to people, but it was one of those things. We went from one thing to the next until I landed in real estate. I moved to the city, and in between gigs, I was trying to figure out what else I could do. I was doing kind of personal styling at a suit shop on Madison Avenue. And then, I don't know, it just was like, this isn't a long-term plan. I was doing some shows that were regional there in the city and outside. And I just like, I wanted to transition to something that I could build on, that was more stable, that was more predictable, that way I could really like build a future for my family. And that's kind of the way I was thinking of what would be next. And the funny part of it is that actually my wife, using the beautiful thing that is the internet, found like a Groupon for like a real estate course. And she was like, you know what? You can do this inexpensively. You're good in sales. You always have been. You connect with people. It's very relational based. And she bought the Groupon for me and was like, go to class. Like, that's essentially what it was. And it was nicer than that. My wife's very supportive, but that was kind of the way that this started. And then I just really doubled down and did my classes in a month and went through, all day and into the evening and did those classes, passed my exam, and then I looked for a brokerage.
Okay. Wow. I love the different ways people find a new career. And sometimes, sure, it's like I sat down and I researched and, it led me to this. And other times it's your wife found a Groupon and was like that little extra push.
It's really silly, but it was, I'll be honest, it was rooted in the fact that I loved interior design. I loved like the aesthetics of things. And I love people. So it was connected to things that I already loved, just never really thought of it in that way. And sometimes it takes somebody outside of yourself to show you that direction and for you to kind of explore it and say yes. But it was pretty quick once my wife kind of put that in front of me. And yeah, I'm here now. So it gets it stuck. Yeah.
And that idea, right, of like the skill set that you saw yourself in as an actor, right? You're personable, relationship based, you're able to make it work in all situations, which is like a constant need as an actor, right? And all of that transferred so well. So thinking out of the box with the skill set is another theme that I keep hearing that I love that you ended up highlighting there as well.
Yeah, and it came down to like what motivated me. Like even in my work now, I'm looking back and I've been reflecting on it more because I'm kind of always thinking about when I'm in things and I'm doing certain kind of work, is it a no for me or is it a yes for me, right? Then you can feel those internally. Like, is my body saying no to this thing? Like it's really draining me, or it feels limiting, or I'm just frustrated all the time when I'm doing these particular things. That's like a feeling of no. And then obviously if it gives me energy, if it makes me feel kind of expansive or really energized, like that's me saying, yes, I want more of that work. So kind of listening to what that is when you're looking to make a transition is very helpful. But even with the work that you're doing, if I know certain things like light me up and get me motivated, how can I work that into my day to help me prepare for the harder things that are going on, right? Or the things that I'm not naturally geared to do, but are still necessary in the work that I do.
And what is it in the real estate world that is the most motivating to you? Like, is it the people? Is it your colleagues? What aspect of it?
Yeah, I like that question because those kinds of questions are the things that get me energized, right? It's asking like significant questions. It's coaching. It's helping people like kind of realize potential that maybe they didn't see or they can't see for themselves. It's innovating. How can we do things better? So I think those are the aspects that when there's a situation, even in negotiation for, a multi-million-dollar apartment or less than $1 million, it doesn't really matter. It's like these situations that we're given. Well, how can we do this in a way that's going to best serve other people and the situation so that we can come to a good result? That's the kind of stuff that really gets me engaged. And especially when I'm doing like the coaching and the workshops and exchanging ideas, I still take that actor mentality, those things I really like, this collaborative spirit into situations, right? So that we can find a solution. I think that's the thing that has best served me throughout my career, is that actor mentality of how do we handle these situations in the moment.
I say often actors make the best employees because in so many ways, because they know how to deal with people. And that's such a skill that is so needed in, even things that aren't obviously people related industries like real estate. Obviously, you're dealing with people constantly. But I mean, in anything, you're behind a desk and you still need those skills in order to succeed.
And just relationally, I mean, we did Meisner for a little while. It's like, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to receive what that person says, and to be able to repeat back to someone or reflect back what they said to you without changing it, right? Without putting your own like interpretation onto it. And so it allows people to feel heard. It allows them to really you're just creating a space of significance for them there in that moment. And so it happens in little moments, but it happens then as you build those moments and tie them together, it creates a very different environment, I think, for people to operate and to share and communicate.
And that's so huge. And something else that caught my eye in your social media was that you get up at about 4:20 in the morning and you have a very set morning schedule and routine,
Yes.
right? How did that come about and how has it influenced your work?
Yeah, that's a more of a recent change. I think I've been doing that for a little over a year, maybe 2 years now. I got to be honest, it was a lack of self-confidence that I needed to actually create more discipline for myself. Actually, when I got into management, I was an agent for 8 years before I transferred into management. Now I've been with the company for about 11 years. And when I got into management, I was like, I thought I was pretty disciplined. But when I got into management, I was like, yeah, I really need to be more disciplined if I'm going to be able to handle this. I also commute from Connecticut. So I have to get up really early in order to have time for myself before I commute in, so that I don't feel behind because I manage 165, 170 people. So I need to kind of be prepared for the day. So similar to how I'm looking for yeses in my day, like I need to prime myself for myself to take on the challenges of the day. So the only time I really felt to be able to do that was to get up early. And it didn't start at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like it was like 5:30, maybe 5:45, if I'm being honest. And then at 15 minutes earlier, and a month later was another 15 minutes till where I got up to a point where I felt like it was the right amount of time. And that, like, for me, like I said about the self-respect thing, I just felt like I was letting myself off the hook. I said for a year and a half I was going to go work out. I was going to be more active. I was going to be more disciplined in those things, and I wasn't doing it. And so I kind of hit a breaking point of, you know what, I need to build this self-respect for myself, because I'm saying I'm going to do it and then I don't, and that needs to stop. And so I just started committing to it, and I'm more accountable to other people than I am to myself. And so I felt the best way to do that was, and be productive on that, was to start sharing that in my stories every morning when I do it. And that got to a point where my agents were saying, wow, you really get up early. That's discipline. I'm like, you don't have no idea. I've been struggling with discipline my whole life. And so it's just one of those things that I think I was acting as if until it was true. And so now I'm much more disciplined. It's much easier for me to get up in the morning, and really gives me so much more energy throughout the day and throughout the week. It's a game changer. I can't believe I didn't do it before.
And I love this so much. Most of the listeners know by this point that in addition to the performing world, I'm in the fitness world as well.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's true.
having taught for many years the 6 a.m. classes, I was always amazed by the consistency of that group of people. And I teach in corporations. So these people go at 6 a.m., they get there to do their workout, and by 7 a.m., they're at their desks for the entire day. And the majority of the people in my classes were commuting in from New Jersey and Westchester and whatnot. So to think back, like they're getting on a train at 5 in the morning to get here, and it's so consistent. And there is something about not only like just putting it in the calendar and making it an automatic over time, but those morning hours where, you're not going to get a meeting scheduled for 6 a.m. unless you're working with, another country. Your kid isn't going to have a soccer game at 6 a.m. You're not going to have a doctor's appointment at 6 a.m. So it's so much easier to, even though it feels halfway to impossible, I think, for some people to get up earlier, there is something about the ability to create a habit in the morning of whether it's exercise or eating breakfast, or I saw that you also like to write in the mornings, any aspect of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of came to this realization that if I can't hold space for myself, how can I hold space for 165 people, let alone one person, right? So it was like, I got to prioritize that, because again, I have to prime myself, but just the ability to hold space for myself what became a big part, and it was eating away at me for a while until I made the choice. And then, obviously it took time to be as consistent as I am now. I think people are like, oh, all of a sudden you were just consistent. I'm like, absolutely not. And people that are consistent are still only doing it 80% of the time. They're not doing it 100% every day. Like, consistency is relative, but for me, 80% of the time it now is consistent. But that even took a year to get to a point where I felt like I'm proud of this.
And I'm glad you said that, because people do get discouraged. Like, I need to do X for an hour a day. And when it doesn't happen, it can feel like a failure. But no, it can be 2 minutes earlier, or it can be 4 out of the 5 days, to build that up. So thanks for highlighting that as well.
For sure. Yeah, it's just showing up. And I think it has to start there, because we let ourselves down all the time, not showing up when we say we're going to. And that's really the big thing that pushes things forward.
So that leads a great way just to wrap up with showing up. You showed up to yourself to ask the big questions about, should I still be an actor? Should I find something else in life? Am I being pulled in a different direction? Do you have any advice for someone who's going through that moment of something feels off and I need to go a different route, but I'm scared to take the steps, or I'm not sure? Anything on that regard?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like how you asked it too. I think that I never really thought of it this way, but based on your question, I remember, because I was sitting backstage on a production of Macbeth that I was doing in the city, when I had the realization. I just was like, no, I shouldn't do this anymore. It wasn't even like I was sitting down really thinking about it. It was just this realization. And I think the question that kind of came into my head was, is this really serving who I want to be in the future, or the cause that I'm really pushing forward? And I felt like the answer was no, obviously, because I changed pretty shortly after that. But I felt like there was too much stress in all parts of my life that I couldn't really be myself effectively and communicate what I was actually the value I was trying to give, like, to myself, to my family, to like the things I was doing. So I think that really was, this no longer serves me or what I'm trying to become. And so I need to make that change. And once I kind of realized that, and it wasn't like 100%, but it was the majority of what I was feeling was, no, this isn't right. So I'd say that, I was looking at, what's the cause? Like, what am I really here to do? I wanted to come to the city to impact other people, right, through my work. And at the time, I thought it was through telling actor stories, the stories of the plays that I was working in, the shows I was working in. And now I'm actually realizing that it's impacting people through my work, but helping them tell their stories so that they can better connect with people and add value and create a space of significance for others. And so that has been consistent the whole time. The funny thing is I just had to go back and realize that. And I think it starts with those questions of, is this currently serving me? And if not, what are those things that give me the energy? What are the yeses that are showing up in my daily life already? And how can I maybe add more of those into my daily existence, right? And what I'm doing. And gradually, I think we can find the answer to that naturally without putting ourselves under so much pressure to make a big choice then and there.
That was beautifully put. That's one of those moments where I say, like, pause, rewind, listen to it again, and then move on. Excellent. Joel, thanks so much for chatting with me today, and all the information on where to follow Joel and Corcoran is going to be in the show notes as well. I can't thank you enough for your time.
No, thank you. I love connecting with you and always love talking about this stuff. So thanks, Kate.
So happy to introduce you to Miriam Silverglate. She is a triple board certified physician in internal medicine, geriatrics, and obesity medicine. She's the founder of Virtual Wellbeing MD, a clinic that offers comprehensive, holistic, and personalized care to patients using advanced technology and evidence-based medicine to prevent and treat medical and emotional conditions that could affect their current and/or future quality of life and well-being. Dr. Z, as she is more often known, is also the author of the 3G Cycle of Life, The Secrets for Achieving Joy, Meaning, and Well-Being. She has 2 sons, a husband, a supportive family in Florida, and her dream is to help others achieve lives full of joy, meaning, and well-being. Miriam, thanks so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super happy to be here.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. And what I'm loving with this trio of mini interviews for this episode is highlighting career change, different aspects, different meanings of career change, how you define it, because something that has come up in the first 90 plus episodes of Be the Good with Kate over and over again is that idea of what we say we're going to do at 18, what we sign up for in college, what our first job is not the one that it ends up being 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, etc. So Miriam was telling me before we hit record a little bit about where that came for you. So how about we start back at the beginning and share away?
Yeah, I want to say something before I tell my story, and I want to kind of open the door for people to change their perspective, right? And to understand that based on the stories that they will hear, right? Not only mine, but many other stories. The fact that we change through life doesn't mean that we fail, actually that we are growing, right? And this is something that I used to repeat myself, and now I actually believe it's true. We are here not to be exactly the same person that we were 10 years ago, 20, 30, whatever we are in our life. We are supposed to change, and we are supposed to have different perspectives and different needs, and to have the ability to adapt, to be self-aware, to recognize the gaps, to recognize our new needs, and to take that information and the courage to say, what is happening today doesn't fit my needs today anymore. They were perfect for yesterday. They are not good for today. I need to reassess, and I need to push forward and go out of my comfort zone to achieve the life that I want today and that I deserve today. That is not easy. So, and I want to say again, this is not a demonstration of failing. This is not a demonstration of quitting. This is a demonstration of courage and emotional intelligence. And I hope that if someone right now is hearing this and they are going through that process of transition, this will change their perspective and the messages that they will be sending to themselves during the process. So be proud of yourself. You are smart enough to know that you don't belong to this part of the journey and that it's time for you to change the route. So go for it.
I love what you just said. Absolutely. And let's repeat, it's courage, it's going out of the comfort zone, the mindset aspect of it's what you're telling yourself. This is progress. This is change. This is evolving. And we are not the same people tomorrow that we were yesterday. Thank you for highlighting that. I loved it.
And I am the demonstration of that, right? I didn't want to be a physician. I was terrified of blood. And I still have problems with needles. Don't get them close to me. So, and I used to faint in front of the meat in the market because was death, right? So when I went to my parents to let them know that I will not be a psychologist, but a doctor, because my best friend in the school wants me to be a psychiatrist so we can study together in medical school, they almost had a heart attack, and they tried as much as possible to convince me that that is not happening. But that's what you need to do with an adolescent. Tell them no, so they will find a way to do it, right? So, of course, I went to medical school, which was very good for me because I was so sentimental and so emotional that I will cry with every patient. So imagine me being a psychiatrist, that will not have a happy ending. So I grew as a physician, and what happened is that I still had the heart of the psychologist, right? I wanted to help. So I will always keep my emotional aspect right there. Like I will ask for the emotional things, the social aspects of the patient. I will always take that in consideration. So I was kind of a weird physician in some way, right? The one that cries with the patient, the one that goes and buys stuff for them. I used to take the pants or socks of my dad and bring them to the patients in the hospital if they didn't have family. And but well, I was a physician, officially a physician. So years later, after practicing for 10 years medicine, my new change came, right? And I was a successful physician, working hard and being happy professionally, but I was absolutely single, and I was almost 40. And I met my husband, and my husband was actually living in Miami, and I was in Peru. So after dating back and forth for a year, he proposed, and I quit my job via Skype because I was in Miami at the time. And we surprised our parents with a wedding, and we got married. And I was supposed to start from zero in the US, trying to learn a new language, recover my status as physician, right? Because you have to get trained again. And this time I was above 40 and pregnant twice during my training. So my residents were able to be my kids. In the 20s, I was in the 40-something, and I was training with them being pregnant. And you could say that that will be a traumatic event for many. For me, it was a blast because I was enjoying it, all the adrenaline and learning the new things that were available, right? And you will think that that will be my last change in life. So no, I finished my training and I went for my wonderful job, and COVID came. And COVID opened my eyes to something that I never learned in medical school in Peru or here. And it's that I was going after the certificates. I was going after the levels, right? The positions and the acceptance of others. And I was forcing myself to fit. Yes, it's still I had this love for medicine and for helping that, I started this journey, but it was diluted and the background noise was getting me confused. And I was procrastinating and taking care of my kids, my parents, my marriage, myself, trying to fit the label that I have. You're a physician, you are a leader, you have obligations, you are an academic person, right? And COVID brought a lot of bad stuff to our lives, but for me, it brought this self-awareness. And that forced me to go for my next change in life. And I don't know if it will be the last one, but at least was a very important one. I quit my job and all my positions, and I decided to write a book about well-being. Of course, I got trained and I educate myself and etc. It's not that, it was not just my opinion. And now I am opening this clinic outside of the healthcare system that was not a healthy place for me, and that was not a representation of my values and who I was as a person and as a doctor. And I am going back to close the cycle, right? And going back to my roots. I am becoming that doctor psychologist that I wanted to be all my time. And I am centering in the well-being, not only the physical, but the emotional well-being of people, in order to be able to achieve my own personal well-being and the well-being of my family and the ones that I love so much. And do I think that I failed? No. Do I think that this is scary? It's absolutely scary. Every step, every change has been scary, but has been so worth it. So if you guys are going through something like this, jump into the pool, but don't jump alone. Ask for help, ask for friends, for supporters, for coaches, for mentors, for people in social media, wherever you want. Because you will be surprised of the support, love, and encouragement that you can get if you accept your vulnerabilities, you accept that you need help and that you are learning something new, and that you cannot do this by yourself, but you can grow with others supporting you.
You can't do this by yourself, but you can grow with others supporting you. That's huge. And it's so hard to reach out for help. And so incredible, that journey, and not just careers and jobs. You also changed countries, languages, size of family, right? And
size of the belly.
I got it right now too, with you right there. This episode will hopefully make it into being released before he comes out.
Well, he will know that he's well received, right? And he's coming with positive energies.
Absolutely. He's been surrounded, again, that support system, by a lot of positive energy. And I also wanted to ask you about that. When you made the decision to go from traditional medicine, let's say, as a doctor, to then stopping it all and writing the book, did you find a community? Like, how did you figure out what the heck you do to write a book?
Yeah, so in my case, I didn't stop completely medicine. I joined a practice like telehealth practice, where I was very independent with my schedules and things like that. So I believe the majority of women will say today that they need to feel some independence, and that goes with their ego also, right? So I was not able to become someone that suddenly needs to ask, or I wanted to keep my independence and feel that I am not pushing my husband to an uncomfortable zone. So I continue working this part-time as a physician doing telemedicine. And I joined actually a group from Georgetown University. At that point, it was called Creators, that used to give us a grant, people like me, that they have something to say and have no idea how to do it. So we were collectively writing. We were be a group of, I would say, 100, 120 individuals. And we started to receive classes and training. And each of us, we were able to kind of graduate publishing the book, right? Some of them, they were not able, some of them. But I will tell you what was magical about this experience. I was able to publish a book, and I learned a lot of things and pushed myself very out of my comfort zone, but I met amazing people, and I created a very amazing network of new friends around the country. And one of the individuals that I met there, and one of the ladies that I met there, and actually I interviewed for my book, is now part of the project of the clinic, which is amazing. Who will think that we will meet in a program I mean, it sounds already weird, right? Like, oh, we met when we were writing our own books, right? And now she is a former Buddhist nun, very kind lady. She went through several changes in her life, and probably you will love to interview her. She is spectacular, Sophie. And Sophie will be helping me with everything that is related to mindfulness, meditation, to help my patients not only to achieve their physical well-being, but you cannot achieve physical well-being if you are not emotionally in the right place.
Yes. And that's something that really drew me to what you're doing now too, is the whole self, the well-being aspect, not, just writing a prescription and being done with it. It's so needed.
And there is so much in medicine. I believe that the ego of many of us as physicians in one side, in the other side, the pressure from the corporations and insurance that do not allow us to order these things or that things, and how tired we are, right? How pressed we are, and the lack of a space for us to keep developing our knowledge has been the kind of removing us from the opportunity to practice a more modern medicine. And what I did is, being curious as I am, I started to find out what else is available. And not only adding this kind of holistic approach means to add meditation, mindfulness, or lifestyle modification, which is absolutely great. But now we have the opportunity to do precision medicine, to do DNA testing, to do remote monitoring. We can evaluate the sleep patterns of people, right? Just with devices. You are moody, of course, you are not sleeping well. I know that you are moody, you are tired, you are not able to be, the high executive that you want to be. You are not sleeping well, or you are not exercising, or you have pain. But so those are things that remote monitoring can give us information about the daily activities and how your body responds to that, your heart rate as a response, your temperature, your oxygen, right? So we can capture all that information and adapt our treatments to that. We don't need to work anymore blindly, right? Now we have data that can guide us, so we are more precise. But beyond that, we have also the test, the blood test, DNA testing that can give us information about the body per se and the type of reactions that you will have to medications. Are you able to metabolize this medication appropriately or not? Why I take this medication and I have side effects and you don't? It's because our body has specific characteristics. We can get that information, why we are not using it in a normal, in a common way. We have that. And the other thing that we have with DNA is you can get information about when your body has your metabolism like on the high level or when low, why you have appetite for at that point, why, I don't know, you will benefit from this type of exercise or diet and more information. So I feel like if we don't use this, and I'm not saying that it's 100% sure, but there is nothing 100% sure in life, right? Or in medicine right now either. But if we don't start using technology and modern information to support the journey of patients to achieve health or well-being, we are not giving our 100% to patients. And that is not fair.
It's wonderful to hear how you're so at the, that cutting edge of what's coming and what's here and focusing on well-being. And the website is virtualwellbeingmd.com, correct?
That
Great.
is.
And that'll be in the captions too, as well as your social media handles. Miriam, I can't thank you enough for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for inspiring others, right? Because that's what we need. We need to hear stories. We need to know that we are not alone, that it's not just us, that we are not crazy. No, we are passionate people with dreams, and we have the right to go for it and to achieve the life that we deserve, right? And that we have been dreaming of.
Absolutely. Oh, and so much just actionable advice too that you've given. Thank you.
Thank you.
In taking classes over the years or observing workout videos, one major piece that is often missing: stressing safety and form. Additionally, group fitness classes are often marketed as being open to all levels, yet how often do instructors not give modifications nor progressions so that each participant truly can get what he or she needs out of the class? So that's why I created the 101 series, which take things back to basics with 3 separate courses: Bar 101, Pilates 101, and HIIT 101, focusing on safety and efficiency so you can maximize your workouts. Be confident when you step into a group fitness class or workout on your own. Be strong in your execution of the most common exercises, and be proud of yourself for taking these huge steps forward on your health journey. Check it out at bebykate.com. The link is in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.